Alright, hello everyone, it's Acro. Right now we are in the middle of a bear market for Bitcoin, and as usual, a lot of people think we are going lower from here. But in this video, I'll show you why there's a very good chance that Bitcoin has bottomed here at 57k. So we'll go over 5 strong reasons why this is the case, with each reason stronger than the last. And then the final reason is a hidden pattern that I've not seen anyone else talk about. It's the signal here in yellow, and it has only flashed 7 times in all of BTC's history, and it's flashing once again right now. And you'll see how 7 times out of 7, it either marked the bottom of the bear market, or it was a low that held for a long time. And according to this signal, this low here we just made at 57k should hold for now, and we will not go lower until at the very least the middle of September. So let's not waste any more time, and let's start with the first strong reason for why we bottomed, the RSI divergence. Alright, so let's put on the RSI indicator here at the bottom, and notice how over the past few weeks we have made lower lows on price, but on the indicator we have actually made a higher low. And this is on the weekly time frame, which is very significant, and it's actually quite rare that we get a pattern on such a high time frame. And just to give you an idea of how strong it can be, here at the top of the bull market, we had the opposite effect where we had higher highs on price. And then when you look at the indicator, we had a lower high on the RSI. So we could have a strong reversal based on this. And not only that, but you can see how we had 3 green candles on the weekly that basically are a confirmation that this pattern is playing out. So I would not be surprised if we get a good reaction here in the coming weeks. So now let's move on to the second reason, and it has to do with the stochastic indicator here at the bottom. And I like to use the stochastic as an indication of whether we are overvalued or undervalued in the price of Bitcoin. And notice how in the prior bull market, the bottoms of the stochastic has coincided perfectly with the bottoms on price. And the tops on the indicator also correlate quite well with the tops on price. And right now we had a period where we had a strong decline over the past few weeks. And basically the stochastic needed some time to reset back down. And although the stochastic is not the best indicator to finding the absolute low of the bear market, whenever you get close to this bottom area, it's usually a sign that you will get at least a bounce and a ranging period for a few weeks, like it has happened in prior bear markets. So the stochastic is saying there's a good chance we bottomed here. And now let's take a look at the third reason why we might have bottomed. And it's this yellow line here is the 200 weekly simple moving average. And out of any moving average, if you could only choose one, then this is probably the strongest one, especially on the higher time frames like the daily and the weekly. And it's because most of the trading algorithms that buy and sell automatically are very often using this 200 moving average as a filter to either be long or be positioned short. For example, on the daily time frame here, the algorithms will switch long whenever we are above the moving average and will start entering shorts whenever we go below the line. And it's not just Bitcoin. You can take a look at any other asset like gold here on the weekly time frame and notice how each time we are above the yellow line, basically it's been a bullish regime. But once we start getting below, it's better to be positioned to the downside. And it's particularly good on BTC, especially as a massive support level for the bottom of every bear market. It was support in 2015, the price bounced perfectly off it in 2019, and the only exception was here in 2020. But even here it has acted as resistance here and support here, and once we got clearly above it for a long amount of time, it was the sign that it was the continuation of the bull market. So let's look at what we have right now. You can see how ever since June, every single candle close has been above this moving average. We've only spent 1 week below, but then it was immediately reclaimed the week after. And notice how we have not actually spent any amount of weeks below this level. And it's quite different from 2022, where here we got directly through the level and we spent a lot of weeks below the moving average, which was a clear indication that on the way up it was gonna be resistance. And that's exactly what happened. So right now, given the fact that we are not closing candles below, until proven otherwise, this is a very strong support for the coming weeks. And it could even be the bottom of the bear market right here. Because let's not forget that historically, it has actually aligned with the previous bottoms of previous bear markets. And now let's move on to the fourth very strong reason for why we might have bottomed here at 57k. And it's this indicator here, the Bitcoin rainbow wave. It's in my opinion the single best indicator for Bitcoin, because you get this wave here that is based on the halvings, and the price has almost always stayed within this wave. And right now we are close to the historical bottom of this wave. And then the second part are these rainbow lines. And notice how the prior bull market tops have coincided with the top of the rainbow band in red, and the bottom of the rainbow lines have coincided with the bottom of prior bear markets near the blue and purple levels. And when you take a look at where we are now, not only we are at the very bottom of the wave, but the last low we made at 57k was basically just bouncing off the purple line. And when you take a look at how this purple line acted in the past, it has been a phenomenal support. For example, it has been exactly the bottom of the 2022 bear market. Then prior to that, we had a perfect support here at the purple. Then prior to that, we had one perfect touch here. Then here, support multiple times. So really, I'm not surprised at all that we are bouncing off the purple here once again. And I will also not be surprised if in the coming weeks we come to retest it once again and bounce from it to the upside. So to me, this bounce of the purple is really a strong indication that we have bottomed here, at least on the short term. And I really encourage you to go watch my previous video where I go into the full details of why this indicator is so good. And in that video, we looked at what it means for the price of Bitcoin over the coming months, but also where and when we might top for the next cycle, as well as the next bear market, and even when we reach the symbolic price of 1 million per coin. So make sure you check out that video after you finish this one. But for now, let's continue because we have finally arrived at this final pattern. So let me explain to you very quickly what this pattern is all about. Basically, whenever price starts to form a top, we get a significant decrease and we start to create a first low. And then after some time passes, the price actually comes once again very close and lower than this first low here. And it's basically a double bottom where we go take the liquidity of this first low. And the key thing here is that these two lows are very close together in terms of price. So that's basically how I've drawn these signals, where we get the first low at the white arrow, and then we make a slight lower low sometime later, and it produces this signal here. So that's the first one. Then the next cycle, it was perfectly the bottom here, slightly lower. Then the next cycle, we have another example here, where we go slightly lower, and it produces this bounce. Same here. Here in 2021, it produced this strong upside move. We have another instance here. And very recently, last year, we had this pattern again, and price nearly doubled after this happened. And right now it's happening once again with this first low in February. And then very recently, we made two new lows very close to this price. So that's basically the pattern. It's now confirmed. And what's very interesting is that we can get an idea of what will happen next when we look at how these signals played out in the past. So the first interesting thing to look at is how much time passes between when the signal flashes and when we make new lows below this low. For example, here it took us 43 weeks before we took out the low from this signal. And when you look back, you can see how it has been 10 weeks, 46 weeks, 12, 21, and the first two signals have actually produced the bottom that has never been breached in the whole history of BTC. But the most interesting fact is you can tell how some values are coming back, for example 46 and 43, or for example 10 and 12. But the most noticeable thing for me is how out of every instance, the bare minimum amount of weeks before we breached the low was 10 weeks, and the second lowest was 12. So what will this mean for the current price action if we measure from the signal low and 10 weeks into the future? That would put us at the week of the 7th of September. So historically, it will be a first to breach the 57k low before the 7th of September. Then the second value was 12 weeks, which would put us at the 21st of September. And then the third value was 21 weeks. So 21 weeks would put us a new low not before the 23rd of November. So that's already a valuable information that will probably not form new lows before the middle of September. And another valuable information is this right here, where from the signal low, you can count how many weeks have passed before reaching the next top. And here it was 26 weeks. Here from this signal, it was 5 weeks. From this signal here, it was 20. From the 2019 signal, it was 8 weeks. Here it was 5. And of course, the first two signals have basically been forever. So once again, when you look back, a common value would be something between 5, which has happened twice, and let's say 8. And notice how it has been the bare minimum once again. So what will this look like when applied to the current low? Well, when you measure 5 weeks from the bottom, that would mean that it's unlikely the top is in because we are only on week 3. So if we respect the 5-week minimum, it would be the 3rd of August for the top. And if we go up to 8, that would be by the end of August. So I would not be surprised at all if we get a local top somewhere in this neighborhood. And one last thing I want you to pay attention to is that in the past, 5 times out of 7, whenever this signal flashed, price went on to make new lows not so long after. So historically, it's like a 70% probability that in the coming weeks and months, we are most likely making new lows. So the bottom of the bear market is probably yet to come. But given everything we've seen in this video, I would absolutely not be surprised if we spend the next coming weeks and months either going up or ranging, and then most likely we get a final low somewhere later in this year. And I'm not only saying this because of this signal here, but the main reason I think the bottom will come later this year has to do with history, because historically in the past 3 bear markets, you have this average here in red, you have a 10% deviation here to the left and to the right in terms of time, and when you count the amount of weeks from the top of the bull market, you get the following white lines that are all within this 10% zone. And here are the exact dates where the prior bear markets would have ended if it was applied to the current cycle. And if you want more details about that, make sure to go check out the first video on my channel where I go over when is the most likely time for Bitcoin to bottom this cycle. So that's it for this video. I hope it provided you great value to know what to expect in the coming weeks and months. Make sure to like the video and subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you in the next one. That was Acro. Bye.